Hey everyone, welcome back to Blurred Lines, the podcast where crime, conspiracy, and truth collide. I'm your host, Ashley or Ashtootrippy, and today we're diving into a perplexing case that blurs the lines between disappearance and deception, the case of Angela Greene. Okay, y'all. So, this missing persons case, I actually listened to the podcast from Crime Junkies, Missing Angela Greene, and I will leave it in the show notes down below. I do believe that this is something that you all should listen to. They do go a little bit more in depth as they did have interviews with her niece and her daughter. They know how to do this podcasting thing. I'm still kind of learning. I'm trying to do my research as best as I can. However, I did want to let you guys know that I did reach out to her niece, Michelle, and unfortunately, I know it was short notice, but she did not message me back over on TikTok. But she has been advocating for her aunt for quite some time now and trying to resolve the issues of her basically just vanishing without a trace. This case is something that a lot of people have talked about, and we're going to get into it today. So buckle up, guys, while we blur those lines between deception and disappearance. Okay, so a little bit about Angela Greene. Angela Greene was born in 1968 in Boding, Hebei, China. I'm sorry if I butchered that. She is an Asian female who is 5 feet 7 inches tall and approximately 110 pounds. She's littler on the littler side. Angela met and married her husband Geoff Greene approximately 22 years ago after meeting in China, where he was working for a short time as a mechanic. Several years later, they started their family with the birth of their only child, Ellie. Angela's sister, Catherine, also immigrated to the USA, and they remained in contact until her disappearance. She worked briefly in the insurance industry, but chose to remain at home after Ellie was born. So some interesting facts about Angela is that the only doctor Angela had ever known to have visited was when she had delivered Ellie, her daughter. She didn't like physicians or trust them, according to family members. Angela was also a very overprotective mother who watched over her greatest possession, which was Ellie. Angela had a very small circle of influence in her life. Her neighbors described her as very kind but reserved. She really didn't have many friends. She didn't drive, and she didn't have her own bank account, credit, or debit cards. And they did not have a circle of like any kind of faith or tradition, and her circle of support outside her husband and her daughter Ellie was very limited. Angela did stay at home. She was a stay-at-home mother most of the time, unless accompanied by her husband or Ellie. When home, she kept the house very dark. Some wondered if she was struggling with depression or if there were relationship problems at home. When Angela would speak with her sister Catherine on the phone, she would turn the conversation more towards her own needs or concerns for Ellie. Her sister became concerned when Angela began demanding that they only speak in English when they were on the phone. Geoff could be heard in the background, and Catherine couldn't figure out if Angela really wanted to only use English or was being compelled to avoid using her native tongue, something Geoff didn't speak or understand. Which could be understandable, like that controlling aspect of it, which you'll see throughout this case is there was a sense of control that I think Geoff thought that he had over. And in my opinion, I think that Geoff was controlling her because he thought that he could, because she was an immigrant from another country. He didn't have her thrive in the ways that other people thrive in the United States, and she was just meant to be very secluded from the rest of the world, in my opinion. Angela apparently had a temper and could become very angry, including throwing things during family fights. Ellie admitted her mother struggled with some verbal anger issues, which could be just frustration as well, because it could be a lot of frustration from what she was dealing with and trying to protect her daughter from, and that's maybe what Ellie was seeing. Again, just my opinion. Angela did not use social media nor initiate calls on her phone. She rarely carried a phone either. She didn't text. When Ellie was living at home, including her first year in college, Angela would prepare a lunch for her, usually putting a note inside the lunch to remind her daughter how much she loved her, which shows that she was a doting mother. She was someone that really did love her daughter, in my opinion. So even though they were very upset with each other the night Ellie left, it would be very uncharacteristic of Angela to not contact Ellie in the past 17 months. So there was an argument that had happened before any of this allegedly happened. Her daughter just basically left, and she had told her to get out of the house, and that was something Angela had never done before, especially towards her daughter. I think, now this is my theory on why this whole fight took place, is that I think that she was creating distance. If you guys know that when people kind of know that something's gonna happen, or know that, especially people that have like chronic illnesses that they know they're gonna pass away from, they do start pushing away the people that are closest to them. So did Angela actually have some kind of premonition that something would happen to her? Angela would not leave the house without having her makeup on and being well dressed in an outfit that looked good. Her wallet, Chinese passport, driver's license, phone, makeup, and clothes were still in the house after her disappearance. She did not have a credit or debit cards, as we stated before, and she wouldn't shop on her own. She rarely left their residence without her husband or daughter. Withdrawals from their bank account or suspicious transactions since her disappearance. So I guess there has been, that's what I'm reading here in an article, and I'm gonna actually put it in the show notes down below, but let me read that again. There have been withdrawals from their bank accounts or suspicious transactions since her disappearance. So they're saying there has been some suspicious activity on those. Very interesting to know though that she didn't have her own and everything was under her husband Jeff's name. That's just something to kind of put on there. The Greene family lived in Prairie Village, Kansas. Angela and Ellie had a disagreement about college and Ellie's growing independence on the evening of June 19th, 2019. As I had stated before. So this was a Wednesday on June 19th of 2019 at approximately 6:30 p.m. through 8:30 p.m. Ellie Greene, her only child, stated that she and her mother Angela had an argument at their home over choices Ellie, a sophomore at the University of Kansas, was making, including how she was exercising more independence. Ellie had returned from studying abroad in Italy. Angela was struggling with the adjustment of Ellie leaving the nest, quote unquote. The argument intensified and Angela was yelling in both English and her native Chinese about issues they were having. Ellie is fluent in Chinese, but her father doesn't understand the language. As the two argued, the husband retired to his room, waiting for the storm to blow over. The argument intensified and Ellie was ordered to leave the house by Angela, who handed her a pillow and told her to leave, which she did. There was no further communication between Ellie and her mother or father that night. So this was the night her daughter Ellie left and never came back. Again, I go back to that thing, like, even though she was upset about, I believe she was upset that Ellie had left abroad for a little bit and she was kind of, quote unquote, like left alone with her husband Jeff, which seems to be something that triggered her highly. So that's something to definitely not ignore. So on June 20th of 2019, which was a Thursday, at 8:03 p.m., Ellie received a text from her father Jeff stating he was at his brother and sister-in-law's home asking her to come over and talk about her mother. She didn't go over and doesn't know if Angela was at their home at that time. Her aunt and uncle do not talk to her about the timeline events for fear of upsetting her father. So it sounds like they've really never said, oh yeah, your mom and dad were here. They kind of just don't say anything at all. It's kind of weird. So on June 23rd, which was a Sunday at 8:04 a.m., which is kind of weird, the times, because it seems like she's contacted by her father at the same times for both of these days. So on June 20th, it was 8:03, and on June 23rd, it was 8:04, which is, I don't know, it's kind of, like, it's like something that was like scripted and meant to happen at those specific times. Again, all in my opinion. So on June 23rd at 8:04 a.m., Jeff texted Ellie again, advising her that her mother was admitted to a mental health facility. This is the text message that was sent to Ellie. M is getting mental health care, and I'm at home beginning to organize. Come by anytime. Front door is open. And he misspelled door. So that's kind of suspicious, And was that something that they were talking about, in the actual meeting they had at his brother and sister's house, or sister and brother-in-law's house? Who knows? Jeff sends Allie another text that evening telling her that he needs help going through Angela's personal property and getting rid of things. So I'm sorry, but if you're in a mental health facility, that's something that you're going to end up coming back from. So why are you trying to get rid of things? I don't know. It says, I'm going to need help going through mom's things. And then she says, I will still help you go through mom's things. I'm just very sad right now, which is understandable. Although the text was sent on Sunday morning, Allie does not believe Jeff had dropped off Angela at a mental health facility in the care of mental health workers. Jeff said this happened in the morning and he tricked her in order to get her to go to a local grocery store where he hands her over to mental health workers. So picture this. He takes her and says, hey, we're going to go to the grocery store because again, Angela did not go out of the house very often, and says, hey, we're going to go to the grocery store, and then basically they get there and she's ambushed by quote unquote mental health workers to take her to a facility. Just doesn't make sense. And the where she took her, even though it was down the road from their house, it was just something that you would think people would have seen, and nobody's ever reported seeing that. The text message he actually sent Ellie said, we met the mental health people in the store parking lot and it was a struggle. Better than trying to pry her out of the house. And she always looks good going out, so she did not have the embarrassment of house clothes or untidy house. Oh, don't let anyone know about mom, including the Goes, which is her sister, until I know more about her condition. So he did not want Ellie to tell her sister or her niece anything about this. So this is interesting to include. Jeff didn't or couldn't provide any specifics about the hospital or Angela's diagnosis or prognosis, which within 24 to 48 hours, he would have gotten that from that. And you would have known what hospital took your wife. You would have called them. So you would know this information. It's not something you would just be blindsided by. Over the course of several weeks, Jeff provided a story that included how he took Angela to a parking lot at the local Price Chopper or Aldi grocery store. He described that he met mental health workers in the parking lot of the store near their home. Angela was reportedly taken into protective custody by mental health workers. Again, the stores that he is stating are not too far from their home itself. So that's why he basically just described it. He wasn't specific on what store. He just said, oh yeah, the store near our house. On July 16th of 2019, which is a Tuesday, and let's see, so the last communication here was on June 23rd. So now we're on July 16th, so we're into the next month. So this was a few weeks later. Ellie was with her boyfriend, and when she asked Jeff where Angela was again, he told her that Angela died of a stroke while in the hospital. He wouldn't provide a date when the death occurred or any details at all. Jeff only told Ellie he was so busy at work that he didn't ask many questions of the caller who told him Angela had died. So he didn't know the name or location of the hospital Angela reportedly died in. He didn't get a name or phone number for the caller who told him she was dead because he was really busy at work. And he didn't ask anything further from the caller he had reportedly received the death notification from. Jeff didn't consult with Ellie and said he chose not to have a memorial service. Jeff said he authorized cremation without any discussion. So those are some extremely red flags. The main one being you didn't know where she was at. Like, again, you would have to call that place to know where she is going so they can also contact you back. And to use work as an excuse is extremely weird, and it's extremely suspicious because this is your wife, the mother of your child. It's not like it's a telemarketer calling you and you just don't want to talk to them. This is an important thing. Like, any work scenario would understand you being on the phone with somebody like that, right? When Ellie asked to see her mother's ashes, Jeff informed her that they were going to deliver them soon, but he had to purchase an urn. She later was told that a mysterious man appeared on Jeff's doorstep one day demanding $1,500 in cash to give him Angela's remains, which were put in an urn. So the source I'm using for this, I'm going to put down in the comments below. And actually, it was an urn. Come to find out, the urn was actually purchased by Jeff himself. And it was a red color. You guys can look at it over on the resource material. And Ellie also asked the question of which mortuary handled the cremation, and that was always left unanswered and given excuses for. Neighbors found it odd that a small triangle-shaped island in the intersection across from the Greene residence wasn't weeded and cared for in July of 2019. Everyone knew that Angela took special interest in the island and weeded and cared for it. She also made sure that an American flag was always displayed on July 4th. So that did not take place this year either. So again, you can see in the resource material, basically the island that they're talking about in their neighborhood. So this information is from July to December of 2019. So in September of 2019, Jeff had Ali forge Angela's name on a life insurance document that is now in police custody. He convinces his daughter to forge her mother's name on the document because their handwriting is so similar. And that's very suspicious within itself. And good on her for taking that to the police. November 18th of 2019, just before Thanksgiving Day, Jeff told a family member that Angela was deceased. Family traveled to Kansas to be with Jeff and Ellie. Jeff tells a family member that Angela died at home of a heart attack or stroke. So now we're changing the story yet again, stating that she died at home and not in the care of a mental health facility like he told his daughter Ellie. On December 10th of 2019, Jeff purchases a fixer-upper, quote-unquote, home about an hour west of their current home with the intention of having Ellie move into that location since she didn't want to live at home. Jeff continues to financially support Ellie while she is in school. She has a scholarship for her education, so basically still taking care of her, but not as much as you may think considering she has a scholarship. Ellie speaks with her cousin, who is an attorney, about her concerns over the lack of information. When Ellie asked Jeff for Angela's death certificate, she's told he will text it to her, and it never happens. So her cousin Michelle, which is her name, she is a lawyer. So she has a little bit, she's an attorney. So she has a little bit more understanding about what exactly the questions to ask and things like that about her mother. And since they wanted to start with the death certificate to figure out, okay, where did she die? Who cremated her? Is the cremation legitimate? Like things like that, that's where they started, and they never received that information. So in early 2020, Allie contacts the Kansas Department of Health and Environment in Topeka, Kansas, and asks for a copy of Angela's death certificate. They are unable to locate one in Kansas and perform a nationwide search on her behalf. They could not locate the death certificate, a cremation certificate, or even a marriage certificate for Jeff and Angela. In early February, Ellie reaches out to her cousin, who is shocked to learn about the explanations Ellie is receiving from Jeff. Again, she is an attorney, so she has knowledge in this. So on February 15th of 2020, Ellie's cousin Michelle contacts the Prairie Village, Kansas Police Department and requests a welfare check on Angela Greene Greene, providing their home address. The police department opens a missing persons case after discovering she was not accounted for. So they did do a welfare check and they discovered that she was not there. When the Prairie Village police return a few days later, Jeff advises them to speak with his attorney and refuses to cooperate any further. In late February of 2020, Ellie records a number of telephone conversations with her father where she receives conflicting and confusing information. She begins to suspect that her father knows more than he's willing to talk about. A family member listens to the conversation and shares their personal opinion. So there is recordings as well in the documents or in reference article that I'm going to be posting in the show notes below. So you can actually listen to those calls and you can basically hear the lying about all of this. So he lies to Ellie and tells her that he took Angela shopping on a ruse to trick her so that the mental health workers could take her into protective custody. And then he lies to Ellie as he describes Angela going into the mental health facility. There is also a recording where Jeff fabricates another lie to Ellie as he describes deciding to have Angela's remains, which he was like, I don't know, because I've listened to these calls. He's like, well, I didn't know if I wanted to pay this random person the $1,500 to get your mom. It could have been just a scam. And if it was, like, if you really thought about that, why wouldn't you contact the authorities? You know, there's so many questions in this case. And Ellie does actually ask her father why none of this was reported to police. And it's just a big roundabout way of just trying to get out of talking to his daughter. You can tell towards the end of these recorded conversations that he's just trying to get out of talking to her. He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to admit any of this. He doesn't want to basically put himself in a deeper hole than he already is, in my opinion. On March 11th of 2020, search warrants are served on the Greene residence and a business Geoff Greene frequents. Shortly after becoming aware that Angela was missing, Prairie Village police spring into action and conduct a number of searches at the home and business Geoffrey frequents. The results of the search are unknown. The case remains listed as a missing persons case. So they did search the home, the residence. Actually, to my understanding, May of 2020, Ellie is now working on the home her father purchased as a fixer-upper for her to ultimately live in with roommates. The home is approximately 1 hour west of the primary residence. The home was purchased in December of 2019. Ellie discovers a mound of dirt in the backyard that resembles a grave. It has a mound of dirt and there appears to be a layer of black plastic about sub-ground level. The mound has a cement stepping stone at one end and two of Angela's favorite flowers planted, hostas and yucca plants. These plants are not found at their residence. And again, in the reference material, you can find a picture of the mound that she had found. So at this point, Ellie begins her own investigation and things start happening. So Ellie's father becomes elusive and changes the locks on her family home, not allowing her to come by unless he is physically there. Her belongings are still in the residence, so he doesn't allow Ellie to go in the home by herself, which is very concerning. It seems to me like he was trying to have control over Ellie as well. As you can tell, he bought this fixer-upper home for Ellie to move into, so she doesn't have to go back to the home and live there, even though it was hurting her to do so. Yeah, it's suspicious. It's another suspicious instance. So when Ellie tried to ask her father more questions and actually say, no dad, that's a lie, that's something that you've said before and it's not proven, and where's the death certificate and what hospital was she at, and just demands answers. Jeff starts getting really frustrated with this and wants her to basically back off at this point. Now, the media as well as Dr. Phil has been on this case as well. So as I stated, Crime Junkies did an episode, but Dr. Phil also did an episode. So basically, Ellie Ellie is invited to go on Dr. Phil in December of 2020, and Dr. Phil enlists the help of Profiling Evil to investigate the case and appear on the show. So there was also a show, Profiling Evil, that went over all of this information as well, which that will be in the resources in our description of this episode. There is also in their state of Kansas, there's a lot of articles regarding this. Kansas City, again, Daily Mail, and on a few different YouTube pages as well. So Profiling Evil, the show that Dr. Phil had recommended to look into this, examines the case and combs through a number of missing persons websites to aid Ellie in her search. The map, which is in the resource material, shows all Asian women whose bodies have been recovered since Angela Greene's disappearance. Let's see. So within the Kansas City area itself, there is quite a few Asian people that have been found. So it says 20 have been recovered total between Georgia, Kansas, and Missouri. So this is just all within that time. And to my understanding, none of these are linked to anything. Now, the one question that a lot of people are asking, where is Jeff now? Where is he? So Geoff Greene is mysteriously quiet about the events surrounding Angela Greene's disappearance. His recorded conversations with his daughter Ellie introduce a lot of inconsistencies, red flags, and outline deception. He's left Ellie alone in her pursuit to find her mother. So to my understanding, there's no communication anymore. He doesn't want to talk about it. Basically, it's basically just a cold case at this point. Nobody knows what's going on because the person that does know what's going on is not saying anything. The resource material I'm actually on, and I just realized that right now as I was scrolling through, is the Profiling Evil website. So they do actually have a few YouTube videos into their investigation, and again, I'll leave that all linked down below. So as of right now, the Prairie Village Police Department, with assistance from the FBI, has launched an investigation into Angela's disappearance. Ellie does have a private investigator, Steve Ridge. He had become involved, and he's now offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to Angela's whereabouts at this time. Several theories have emerged regarding Angela's disappearance. Some believe she may have left voluntarily, while others suspect foul play, possibly involving her husband, Geoffrey. Despite being uncooperative with authorities, Jeff has not been named a suspect due to lack of evidence. And in my opinion, the evidence that they do have is the inconsistencies of what exactly happened, but they don't have a body. They don't have her. They don't have any kind of trail that has led to her. So this is very just cut and dry, because without him, there's nothing that can be done. So Angela Greene's disappearance remains unsolved, leaving her family and the public with unanswered questions. And I have reached out to Michelle, Ellie's cousin, that is helping her with this, who is the attorney. And unfortunately, I know it was a short period of time, but she did not reach back out to me within this time. If she does reach out to me, I'll let you guys know on a brief update or one of our updates podcasts that we release on Thursday. I reached out to her just to let her know I was doing this episode and to maybe get a quote from her or something like that. But she has spoke with numerous people, like I said, including Crime Junkies, which I will leave the link to the episode of that as well, so you guys can deep dive into it a little bit more. If you have any information about Angela's whereabouts, please contact the Prairie Village Police Department at 913-642-6868 or the Crime Stoppers Tips Hotline at 816-474-8477. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and let me know your guys' thoughts wherever you're listening to this on. Let me know your thoughts on this case, and if you know anything or if you've come in contact with anybody that talks about this case, definitely let them know. Ellie and Michelle's mother, who is Angela's sister, really just want answers. They want to be able to grieve her if she's not alive. They want to be able to find find her if she is alive so they can have her in their lives. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this episode of Blurred Lines. If you find this episode compelling, please subscribe and leave a review. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll delve into another case where crime, conspiracy, and truth collide. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys next time on Blurred Lines, crime, conspiracy, and the truth behind the gossip. Bye for now, guys.